my plans got all mixed up. I'd been planning to enter Belize from Mexico, and I thought that I'd come across the border, I'd travel by land down to Belize City, I'd catch a ferry over. It turned out that they had just opened a new ferry line that went from the bus station in Chetumal in Mexico and would take me to San Pedro Island out in Belize. It would take me through immigration, and it sounded like this great story. Now, what we didn't realize is that it was actually the first time that they had ever run a second go of this ferry in the afternoon, and that they always ran it in the morning. And so these two Canadians that I'd met on the bus decided to do it with me last minute, and we rushed down because it's supposed to be leaving. We get on this ferry and we start going. And so we're about 15 minutes into the ferry ride when all of a sudden everybody on the ferry starts freaking out, and it's all these locals, and they're rustling with their bags and they're throwing stuff all over the place, and they're speaking really excitedly. And then we look out the window, and there's a speedboat that's coming at us really, really quickly. And so at this point, we're thinking, oh, crap. Is it pirates? Is it the military? Like, why is everybody so upset? This is a normal ferry, right? Like, do they have drugs? Are we going to get in trouble? So it turns out that it's just immigration service. So immigration service comes out. They do a walkthrough. They check everything. And then they send us on our way. So then we're powering along, and we're noticing that it's getting darker and darker and darker, and that there's this huge storm out on the horizon. And so right before the sun finally fades completely, we're just having a nice conversation, and then it's just and the entire boat just comes to a complete standstill. And so we're like, all right, well, we definitely just hit something. And so so we're freaking out a little bit, and we're wondering, all right, we're out here in the middle of the no man's land between Mexico and Belize. It's about a mile in either direction to the closest land, and there's a huge storm that's on the horizon coming in. And so the crew, they're running around, and they're looking all over and trying to figure it out. And at this point, we spent about 20, 30 minutes, and it turned out that we'd hit and run aground on a coral bank or a sandbank. And so, they're running us all over the place, trying to figure out, all right, move this way onto this side, move that way onto that side, trying to lift the engine out. And meanwhile, we're wondering if the boat's taking on water. And so, everybody's kind of freaking out. The lights are going down. Everybody's putting on life jackets. And, I'm sitting there thinking, well, if we ran aground, the boat can't sink that much, and I'm pretty tall. So I'm not sure that I'm that worried about the life raft or having to put on a life jacket. But I'm also thinking, all right, this is brackish water. I know that they have shark issues with sharks coming up here. And I think that they actually have crocodiles that come up here sometimes as well. Possibly alligators. I think they were crocodiles. So now I'm thinking, all right, so am I now going to have to swim? And which way do I go? Do I swim that way? And not to mention, this is Belizean jungle, which is a fairly intense jungle. And so we're all kind of freaking out a little bit. It turns out that the boat's not sinking, luckily. And finally, we lift the props up off the rocks enough that we're able to back out a little bit. And then, so we start going. But this time, we've been delayed just enough that it's dark. And they haven't gotten around to outfitting this boat or this ferry for running at night. So all we have is flashlights and camera lights as we're trying to navigate. And they're supposed to be following this channel through this area with brackish, really shallow water, which of course they can't do because the water level's dropped and they don't have any light and it's not daytime anymore. So we end up running aground 5 more times. And our 45-minute trip ends up turning into this 3.5-hour trip before finally we run aground so badly that they can't get the ship off. They can't salvage the ship. And so then they bring out another boat. And this other boat has outboard engines, and it has a really, really, really shallow draft. And so they bring this boat out, but this boat's also a good bit smaller, get the two next to us, and then they transfer us all over. So now we are sandwiched into this tiny little boat. And sitting, and we look like we're being smuggled in from Cuba. And so we're like, okay, you know what? This is better than swimming. This is our adventure. It's a minor shipwreck. The boat itself didn't actually sink, so we're in pretty good shape. But then they decide that they still have to run us through immigration. And so the way immigration works is that there's the guy, and he hands you a flashlight. And then you have to stand up. And because it's so tight, and then you put your passport down, and then so he fills in the passport data, gives you your stamp. you stand up, or then he kind of stands back up, hands you your passport, you hand him back the flashlight, and then the next person goes. And so that was my brush with being shipwrecked and my adventure entering Belize. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and please check out Virtual Wayfarer for additional information, and definitely subscribe, and I'll have more great updates for you soon.